Okay, that being said, let's get started with just some easy things, and let's look at exactly what is expected of us in terms of exams. Now, the first thing we need to know is our basic skills. Now, if you open any textbook, if you open a MathLit textbook, you'll always see that chapter 1 is basic skills. Chapter 1 is always basic skills. But when you write an exam, they are never ever going to say basic skills. It's never going to happen that way. All right, they're never going to say this section is on basic skills. Basic skills are the types of things that we need to know inside each and every exam. So you would need to know your different definitions. They could ask you, what does UN stand for? Do we know what the word UN stands for? Do we know what UN stands for, peeps? You can either unmute or you can type it in the chat. I'm happy either way. Are we familiar with the word UN? And if you don't know, you can just say, no, I don't know. All right. So the UN stands for United Nations. Okay, United Nations. And that's kind of like the big organization that encompasses all countries in the world, where they do things like humanitarian aid, and they feed starving kids in war-torn countries, and they advocate for women's rights, and they advocate for, things like that, for things like genocide. So the UN would be very busy right now because of what's happening in Israel, or what's happening in Gaza rather, and what's happening in Ukraine. So the UN is trying to solve things like that. So they're called the United Nations because it's kind of like the big organization of all the countries in the world. All right, thumbs up. Are we okay with United Nations? Yes, we should be able to know what United Nations is. Lovely. Then things they might ask you, what does SARS stand for? We know that SARS stands for South African Revenue Service. It's where you guys pay all your taxes. Sometimes they might even ask you, what is tax? We've got to know what tax is, right? So I'm going to put up a list of all the definitions that you would possibly need to know for MathsLit. And because you're in grade 11, that's going to be grade 11 and grade 12 definitions, because they use kind of the same thing for grade 11 and grade 12. So on our Google Classroom, I'm going to add a list or a document that has a list of all the definitions you would possibly be asked in any MathLit equation, or not equation, any paper, any MathLit paper that you're writing. All right. On top of that, you need to be able to use your calculator. So there's certain functions on your calculator. Let's say, for instance, if you've got a fraction like this, or if they want you to put a fraction where there's a big number and then a fraction kind of number, you need to know how to do that on your calculator. You need to know where to find the percentage symbol on your calculator. You need to know how to do time calculations. You need to do time conversions on your calculator. If you don't know how to, you need to have learned the formula on how to do that yourself. And I'm hearing somebody has joined us. Let me just check who this lovely person is. Hello, Tiamo. It's lovely to have you with us. Great, better late than never. Great to have you with us. I'm hoping that you'll catch on as we're speaking. We're just doing a quick initial hello and just trying to wrap our heads around what it is that we need to know. All right, so you haven't missed very much. We just started. Okay, all right, so we need to know calculator work. Oh my goodness, Tiamo from grade 10 last year. Yes. Tiamo, how did you end up here? Hello. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe this. Hello. It's lovely to have you. My word, yes, I'm now realizing, I'm like, no, but there was more than one Tiamo, so I'm not 100% sure which one it was, but welcome. Not a problem at all. It's so lovely to have you with us. Okay. Great to have you. Okay. All right. I'm going to digress. Let's continue. All right. So we need to know how to use our calculator. We need to know where to find what. We need to make sure that our calculator is set to math and not something weird like science or RAD, or, it needs to be set to math. Otherwise, our calculator is not going to do the thing that we need to do. All right. Next thing we need to remember is how to calculate for ratio and for rates and for proportion. So we know we have direct proportion and indirect proportion, all that kind of stuff we need to know how to do here. All right, then we also need to know how to move from fractions to decimals to percentage, which is also something that you'd need to know how to do on your calculator, because if you have a fraction, let's say for instance, I click 2/5 on my calculator, I know that if I have 2/5 and I want to turn it into a decimal, I need to click that button that has an SD on it. It has SD, right? Insert to decimal. So you can actually click that button and it will take your 2/5 and it will give you the answer 0.4% or 0.4, right? Now, if I have 0.4 and I want to change from a decimal to a percentage, then my calculator is not going to be able to do that for me. I need to know that I need to take this amount and multiply it by 100. All right, and those are the kinds of things that we need to know. Now, things like conversions, we've also got to know the different conversions of weight, length, and then the metric system to the empirical system. Now, in the empirical system, they'll always give you the measurement that you need to use. But for things like weight and length, we have to know these things. Like, for instance, if I want to move from kilograms to grams, I need to know that I multiply by 1,000. Okay, if I move from tons to kilograms to kg, I need to know that I also need to multiply by 1,000. So things like that, they're not going to be very explicit about. Those are the kinds of things that we need to know. Same with length. How do we get from centimeters to meters? How do we go from kilometers to centimeters? We need to know all of those kinds of things. All right. And then with your metric and empirical, it's when they ask you things like, if 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters, how much will 12 inches be worth? Because inches make up part of the empirical system and centimeters make up part of the metric system. So they could ask you things like that. All right. Can I get a thumbs up with the reactions? Is everybody okay with everything I've explained here? We all good? All right. Good stuff. So this is what we need to know. And so when you open your exam paper or a test paper, they're not going to have a specific section on this stuff. You would need to know this already, how to calculate these things. They just throw out a question that involves one of these. All right. Okay. Then we're just going to do a quick analysis of what they would expect. Oh, let me remove this stuff. We don't want that stuff here. Okay. So how do I study for any kind of exam? Now, because most of us are so used to, let me just remove all of this. Okay. Because most of us are so used to having a teacher tell us what to do and when to do it, we kind of end up in a situation where when we get home, we don't really know what it is that we know, what it is that we don't know, right? And part of us growing up and learning how to study, especially for our grade 11, our grade 12 exams, is we need to have a certain level of self-awareness. Okay. We must, to an extent, understand that we're not good at everything. There are certain things that we're not going to be good at no matter how hard we try. We might get decent at them, but we won't be the best at them. And that's okay. But before we can even get into that kind of thing, we need to be brutally honest with ourselves about what we do know and about what we don't know. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to be honest with ourselves. So I'm going to open my textbook and I'm going to go through each section that we need to do. Let's say, for instance, if we're writing a test on finance. Now, I'm going to go through there with a pink highlighter and a green highlighter. And I'm going to tell myself, okay, yeah, all right, I'm good at this section. I'm okay at this section. Oh, this section, I really need help. We're not going to do that thing where when we're seeing everything that we've been given because we're feeling kind of lazy and we're lying on the bed with our arms sitting like this on the bed, half asleep, writing on our books and reading through the maths on some, I understand, I know, I know how to do that, I know how to do that. That's not really going to help us, especially because when you get to the older grades, when you get to matric, nobody is going to be holding your hand to make sure that you understand things. And 100%, nobody in university is going to be sitting there on some, did you guys understand that? No, lecturers don't have time for that. They're not going to have time to ask you whether you understand something. They're going to teach it, and then they're going to move on. And if you didn't understand, or you don't know whether you understand or don't understand because you're hearing somebody who already knows how to do it explain it, then you're going to get like a sense of disillusionment. You're going to believe that you understand something, and then the second you have to sit down and do it yourself, it's going to be a little bit difficult. All right. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? We need to be we need to be brutally honest with ourselves. Okay, I'm going to be honest, right? When I was in university, I really hated writing research papers. I hated it. And because I was always known as one of the smart kids, I used to go around being like, yeah, of course, I love university. Guys, no, I'm not going to lie to anybody. I didn't enjoy university. I did not. It was a long experience. I don't want to go back. People are like, man, why don't you study further? No, I don't want to go back, guys. I don't want to go back. And I have to be honest about that. I did as much as I needed to get my degree. And now I'm going to take a break. As long as a break as I need. I have my teaching qualification. I'm done. I'm no longer going back to university. Because I sucked. There's certain things I sucked at. And that's something I have to be honest about. So me trying to go and do my honors and my masters right now, I'm probably going to fail because I don't feel like doing it. I already know myself. I don't want to do it. So we need to be honest about those. All right. So I'm going to ask you guys now, think about your Maths Lit journey and tell me if there is anything I would like you can unmute if you want to chat to me personally, or you can drop it in the chat. Tell me, what about Maths Lit do you not get? Do you not understand? What do you not like about Maths Lit? Because we need to understand where we're starting from. So I would like you guys to be brutally honest with me. I'm not going to judge you. I'll tell you that. Okay. I'm here to help you, and I would like to know exactly where you guys are in terms of your Maths Lit journey so that I can help you at that point. Okay. So anything you guys feel like you really struggle with, things that you're not very good at, things that you are good at, you're more than welcome to tell me in the chat, and we can take it from there. Okay. What do we say, guys? Finance. Okay. You see, I can get on board with that. Finance is a really hard section, and it's big, and it gets bigger. It only gets bigger. So I can understand why your brain would just be like, nah, I'm not here for it. That's good. Anything else, Nomso, Dalu? What do you guys think? Is there anything about Maths Lit where you're just like, this is not the one? I'll be honest, when I started teaching Maths Lit, maps and plans for me was just, I don't understand. I don't know. It took me a while to wrap my head around what to do for Maths Lit. I mean, for maps and plans, especially because I needed to teach it. Okay, so it took me a little bit of a while to get my head around what needed to be done there. Water tariffs, and you're in luck. We're going to be doing both of these things today. We're going to do finance, we're going to do water tariffs, and we're going to get around to doing all of that. Okay, measurements. Yeah, measurements is really tough, hey? Especially because sometimes they give you like a 3D drawing, and now you need to try and figure out what's happening with the 3D drawing, break it up yourself. It gets very complicated. So we're going to be looking at that kind of thing. All right. Okay, lovely. Let's talk about what you would find in your typical grade 11 and grade 12 exam. All right. So at the end of the year, your exam is normally broken up into two things according to the government paper. So paper one would normally be finance, data handling, and probability. The bulk of it, about 65% of it, 65% of it would be about finance, 30% of it would be data handling, and plus minus 5%. It could be 5%, it could be 10%, you could add or subtract here or there, would be probability. Okay, so, and this is what makes up paper one. But like I said, all of these things, inside all of these things, there will be basic skills. So inside paper one, in between the finance and the data handling and the probability, there are basic skills. So things as simple as what percentage of this thing is in here. Those kinds of things would come up in each of those. All right, same on this side when we get to measurement, maps and plans, and probability. In this one, the split is a little different. Measurement is about 55%. Excuse me. Maps and plans is about 40%. Okay, and then your probability, as always, would be plus minus 5%. It could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but in paper two, it gets split a little bit weirder. All right. And in this case, they do also put basic skills in here. They do. You do find basic skills in here as well. Sometimes you will find that they will also put in here a little bit of finance. But whatever finance they put inside measurements and or maps and plans, they would have to, it would have to be directly linked to what you're doing. So they won't have a whole question, like let's say, for instance, question 3, like let's say you get to question 3 and the whole of question 3 is just finance questions. No, they won't do that in a paper 2. So what they'll do is they'll ask you a measurement question, and then inside the measurement question, they'll ask a finance question. All right, thumbs up. Everybody understanding what I'm saying here? Are we okay with the split of each of these things? Lovely. Okay, so all right, so this is the breakdown of everything that we're going to be doing today. So what we're going to start with, just to get us off on a good note, is we're going to start off with checking whether our basic skills are up to par before we start with the finance part of it. All right, so we're going to do this exercise first. I want this a little bit bigger so that we can see it clearer. All right, if you can, remember guys, you are more than welcome to take screenshots. And if you have any questions, pop your question in the chat for me and I'm happy to help you with it. All right, we're going to start with these first 5 questions. So we're going to do question 1, question 2, question 3, 4, and 5. So calculators at the ready, and then we'll get started on those. When you are ready, you can pop any emoji you would like in the reactions to let me know that you are done. All right, take it away. By the way, hello, Karabo. Welcome. Lovely of you to join us. It's so great to see you here. I'm giving you guys 3 more minutes and then we'll chat about these questions. One more minute, guys. All right, peeps, let's have a look at some of these questions and their answers. So I'm just going to warn you as we're going through this that a lot of the things that we do in Math Lit are very logic based. And I know we were avoiding math core, some of us, because of the idea behind what is logical, but we also need to an extent do something called reading for meaning, especially in Mathlit. We need to be able to read for meaning. And if you've noticed anything about Mathlit, is that there's a lot of writing. It almost feels like English infused with maths, right? Because that's kind of why they call it math literacy. So the difficult part of math literacy is not really the calculations themselves, because the calculations have been simplified for us. The thing that's difficult about MathLit is understanding what you're reading and what to do with what you are reading. So when we see a question, we need to be able to first understand what it's saying. So we need to read to understand it for meaning. And second, we then need to interpret what we've read into a mathematical equation. And that's the difficult part. So first, we need to read for meaning. And second, we must interpret into maths. We must take what we've read and interpret it into maths. And that poses a problem for some people because sometimes in some questions, there are multiple numbers and you're not sure what to do with one number when it comes to is this the number that I'm using? Am I multiplying with it? Am I dividing with it? Am I adding it? What am I doing with it? So we need to be able to understand exactly what that is as we go along. All right, so I'm going to encourage you guys to unmute whenever you can. If you want to give me an answer, I'm happy for you guys to give me an answer in that regard. All right, let's start with question number 1. Question number 1 says, last year, there were 20 students in a class. So we know that there were 20 students in a particular class. This year, there are 30% more students. How many students are in the class this year? So this is going to require 2 steps. We need to take 2 steps. First, we need to figure out how much 30% of something is. By the way, who can tell me? You can either unmute or pop this in the chat. What does the word of in mathematics mean? Who knows what the word of means? That's it, Dalu. Absolutely. It means multiply. Right. So we know of means times. So whenever we are thinking of finding a specific percentage of something, we're just going to pick up our calculator and we're going to multiply by that thing. All right. So first thing we're going to do, because we know that the class has grown by 30%, we now need to go find what 30% is. Right, so I know I'm going to find 30% of 20. And I can punch this into my calculator as I see it. If you're looking for the percentage sign, you'll find there's a button on your calculator that has a bracket like that. And right above the bracket in orange, there is a percentage sign that looks like that. So what you're going to do on your calculator, you're going to click 30, and then you're going to click Shift and look for that button, the one that has like a bracket, like a parentheses like that. And then you're going to click Shift, that button, times 20. Tell me in the chat, what does your answer say? What answer do we get there? 30% of, and if you can't find that button, remember percentage is calculated out of 100. So you could easily just say 30 divided by 100 times 20. So you have 2 options on what to do here. That's it. That's it, Nomso. That's the correct answer. Lovely. So the answer I'm going to get here is 6. However, the question says, last year there were 20 students. This year there are 20 more. What does more mean in mathematics? More means? Who knows? Correct, Tiamo, that's it. It means add. It means plus. So we now need to take the 6 and add it to what we originally had. So our final answer should be 20 plus 6 is equal to 26 students. All right. And that's the answer we're looking for number 1. So this is the expanded definition or the expanded way of understanding this. But personally, this is like a 2-mark question. It shouldn't take us that long to get to the answer. What you could do, it's literally just 2 steps. You're just going to, I'm going to write down what you would write in your test or in your exam. You would write 30% times 20 equals 6. That is step number 1. And then step number 2, you would go 20 plus 6 equals 26 students. And you would get your 2 marks. All right, so it's not an extensive calculation. It's just these 2 things that we're looking for. All right, let me rewrite students. And remember, guys, make sure that you're writing students or bananas or chocolates, whatever it is, to make sure you make the examiner aware that you understand what it is that you're calculating for. So make sure that you're adding that as well as we go. All right, question 2 says, Richard owns a coffee shop. In February, I just want to change colors here. In February, 4,500 hot chocolates were sold. The number of hot chocolates sold in March was 3% less. How many hot chocolates are sold in March? All right. So again, we know that we're looking for 3% of 4,500. So we're going to have to multiply 3% of 4,500, and that is going to give us 135. Okay, I hope I'm not lying to you guys. Am I lying? Because I did that in my head, 4500. Yep, 135, that is correct. Right, so that's step number 1. Now, the thing that we note that's different from the question above is that this one says it's 3% less. So what does that mean we need to do? We're not going to be able to add here. When it's more, we are adding. When they say less, what do we need to do? We need to minus. Correct, Nom. So lovely. So we're going to take 4,500 minus 135, and that should give us 4,365, and then we're going to add in here 4,365 hot chocolates. That's how much was sold in March. Okay, just for good measure, sold in March. Okay, just so they understand that we know what we're doing. All right. Okay, so that is question 2, also 2-mark question. Then we're going to move on to question 3. Now, guys, I want you to note, in this particular question, they want us to find a ratio. There are 2 different ways to simplify ratios. We can either have them easier in their simplest form, or we can have them in their unit form. Does anybody know what's the difference between the simplest form and the unit form? Because this is something that we need to know. It's part of basic skills. We should know the difference. Anybody know? Or are we unsure? It's okay if you're just like, ma'am, honestly, I don't know. Can you explain it? Because that's why I'm here. I'm happy to explain. All right, Nomso says she doesn't know. That's perfectly fine. I'm happy to explain it. All right. Okay, so simplest form would be us taking 2 numbers and seeing which number can go into both of the numbers. Now, let's say, for instance, if I have 10 and I have 15, which number can go both into 10 and to 15 without leaving a remainder? Which number is that going to be? It is 5, correct, lovely. It's 5. So what I can do is I can divide by 5 on this side and divide by 5 on that side. So in my simplest form, this is going to be 10 divided by 5 will give me 2, and 15 divided by 5 will give us 3 on this side. That is the simplest form. There is no number now that I can find that will go into both 2 and 3 without leaving a remainder. So simplest form is finding the number that goes into both those numbers. However, when we look at the unit form wants specifically there to be a 1 on one of the sides. It doesn't matter which side it is, but one of them has to be 1. So if I look at this example over here, where I have 10 is to 15, I know that if I want a 1 on this side, what would I have to divide by over there to get a 1 on that side? What would I have to divide by to get a 1 on that side? 10 divided by what equals 1 is basically my question. Do we have an idea? I'll give you a hint. Anything divided by itself will give us 1. Yes, that's correct, Nomso, correct. If I go to my calculator and I type in 10 divided by 10, I'm going to get 1. But now, because I divided by 10 on this side, I'm going to have to divide by 10 on that side as well. So on this side, I'm going to get 1,5. So your unit form doesn't really care if you have decimals on the other side. We just need a 1 on one of the sides. But when we look at simplest forms, we don't want any decimals. We want to make sure that we have whole numbers on both sides. Can I get a thumbs up reaction? Is everybody understanding what I've said here? We all good? Lovely. Okay, cool. So now let's see what it is that we can do here with the ratios. Now remember, guys, ratios always need to have the same unit of measurement. So over here, where I'm now comparing 8 days and 2 weeks, I can't do that. I cannot compare days and weeks. So I'm going to have to change one of them to something else. And now I know that if I have 8 days, if I have 2 weeks, I know that I can convert 2 weeks into days. Now, this is something I'm just going to have to know. I need to know that there are 7 days in 1 week. And therefore, if I have 2 weeks, I now have 14 days. So for A, when we write down our ratio, we need to have 8 days is to 14 days. Then we need to find a number that we can divide by on both sides. Right, now if we're not familiar with how to do this, we can take our ratio and we can rewrite it on our calculator as a fraction. So you can do this. I want everybody to pick up their calculator, click the button that looks like this. That looks like that, the one that gives you a fraction. And on the top part of my fraction, we're going to put an 8. And on the bottom part of my fraction, we're going to put 14. And then I want you guys to click equals and tell me what your calculator says. Good. That's it, Tiamo. It should give us 4/7. So what your calculator has done is it's giving you the simplest form of this ratio. So it's telling you that there would be a 4 over here by 8, and there would be a 7 over here by 14. All right. And that's how we do that first one over there. Let's talk about B. We've done A. Let's talk about B. At B, I've got 1 hour. I've got 1 hour is to 15 minutes. So in this case, I'm going to have to convert one of them to the other. Which one do you think we can convert? The 1 hour or the 15 minutes? Which one should we convert there? Good, we can take 1 hour and we can convert it to minutes. And this is something, again, that we need to know, grade 11s. We need to know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. Nobody's going to be able to tell you that. You need to know how to do that. All right, so over here, we are then going to take 1 hour and rewrite it as 60 minutes is to 15 minutes. And now if we don't know how to reduce this, we're going to put it into our calculator again. Now, I would always advise that if we want a ratio in the simplest form, always write the smaller number on the top. All right, so we can write the smaller number on top. I'm going to take 15 at the top, and I'm going to put 60 at the bottom. So when your answer comes out, you just know that the answer on the top belongs to 15, and the answer on the bottom belongs to 60. So if we put this into our calculator, 15 over 60, what does that give us? How much do we get, grade 11s? One over 4, that's it. Correct, my darling. We get 1 over 4. 1 over 4. Now, what this tells me is that the 1 belongs to 15 and the 4 belongs to the 60. So underneath here, I'm going to write 4 on this side because that's the 60 part, and I'm going to write 1 on this side for that. All right. Then for C, I see here we've got 2 hours is to 1 day. So I know in this case, I'm going to convert the day because it's going to make it easier for me. I should know that there are 24 hours in 1 day. So my ratio is actually 2 is to 24. And now if I put that into my calculator, it should reduce for me. So I should get 2 over 24, and my calculator will then give me 1 over 12. So the 1 belongs to 2 and the 12 belongs to 21. So my ratio will be 1 is to 12. All right. Thumbs up. Are we all okay with what ma'am's explained here? Are we all good? Lovely. All right. Now we're going to do the unit form. And the unit form is the nice and easy one. All right. So the unit form is going to go a lot faster. If we look at A over here, what we have for A, right? It says here, express the following ratios in unit form. I've got 2 is to 3. I already know if I have 2 is to 3, I want a 1 on either of those sides. So let's say I pick this side. I already know that to get to 1, I have to have divided by the actual number. So I must divide by 2 to get to 1, which means all I have to do on my calculator now is click 3 divided by 2. Now my calculator is going to give me a fraction. It's going to give me a fraction. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to click SD. I'm going to have to click the SD button to get my decimal. So can somebody give us the answer there? What is 3 divided by 2? And your calculator is just going to say 3 over 2, but we must click SD to get the decimal that we're looking for. Well done. That's it, Karabo. Nice, Siamo. Good. So we're going to get 1,5 on the side. And remember, for your unit ratios, you always want 1 on one of the sides. All right. So let's do B together. Let's do B. When we look at B, I've got 5 is to 4. I've got B. Look now what I'm doing. I'm writing B as a ratio. B. 5 is to 4. I know that I need a 1 on one of the sides, so I'm going to divide by 5. I already know that I'm going to do it because that's going to give me a 1 on the side. So now I need to go to my calculator and click 4 divided by 5. My calculator will give me a fraction, and then we're going to click SD. So 4 divided by 5 equals, and then click SD, and your calculator is going to give us 0,8. So on this side, I should have 1 is to 0.8. All right. C on the side, I now have 4 is to 10. I know that I want 1 on the side, so I've divided by 4. Now all I need to do is go on the side and divide by 4 as well. Now 10 divided by 4. 10 divided by 4 should give us 5 over 2, but we need to click SD. So our answer is going to be 1 is to 2.5. All right, and that's how we can know the difference, guys. It's very important because some of the questions that you get in a test or an exam are just going to be express these two numbers in unit form, and that's all. So you need to know what unit form actually means. Express the following numbers in simplest form. They're not going to explain what simplest form is. You need to know that. So please take heed of what we're seeing at the moment on the screen. It's very important that we do it correctly. All right. Okay, we're going to do question 5, and then I want us to move on to the actual finance part of it so that we don't run out of time. All right, so it says here, Martina wants to convert 300 euros or 300 pounds into euros. The post office only has $20 or 20 pound bills. We'll get to that in just a bit. They only have 20 pound notes, right? So we now have 300 pounds and we want to put it in euro, right? And that's 20 euro notes. They say the exchange rate is 1 pound, or 1 pound is to 1.17 euro. So I can write this as a ratio like what we were just doing. I'm going to say 1 pound is to 1.17 euro. Now they're telling me that I've got 300 pounds. So because the pounds are sitting on this side, I'm going to put 300 on this side. Now we need to ask ourselves, what did we multiply by to get from 1 pound to 300 pounds? What did I multiply by here, grade 11s, times by what? To get from 1 to 300, I would times by, it's an easy question, I promise you guys. I'm not trying to trick you. It's right there. Correct, Karawa, good. I would multiply by 300. So if I multiply this side by 300, I'm also going to have to multiply this side by 300. So I'm going to pick up my calculator, 1.17 divided by 3. I'm sorry, times 300. Why am I dividing now? Times 300, and this will tell us how much we will get in euros. You will get 351 euro for your 300. All right, that's the part where they say, how much will it cost Martina? Martina will get 351 pounds, euro, but they're saying here that the post office only has 20 euro notes, right? And I've got 351 euros. So how many 20 euro notes are they going to give Martina? How are we going to figure that out? Logically, what would we have to do to figure that part out? Correct, that's it. We would have to divide by 20 euro to figure out exactly how many notes. So take that 351, divide by 20 for me, and tell me what your calculator says. Your calculator is going to give you a fraction, so you need to click SD in order to get the answer that we're actually looking for. Okay, divided by 20. Okay, good. Our calculator gives us 17.55. Now, 17.55 is all well and fine, which tells us really that Martina's going to get 17 banknotes, right? She's going to get 17 20 euro notes. But what about 55? I can't give you 55 of a note. Imagine getting a 20 rand. That's it, Karabo. If you get a 20 rand, I can't give you 55 of a 20 rand if I need to give you a physical 20 rand. So because there's 17,55, to cover all her money, we need to give her one extra. So not just 17, 18, and Karabo, you're just like, mwah, a whole genius. Well done. That's the correct answer. So we'd have to round up. So the answer we're looking for is 18 notes. Martina will be given 18 notes. Thumbs up. Is everybody okay with how Karabo and I have explained the question? Are we cool with it? Lovely. And that's the logic part of the question. We need to be able to understand the logic behind what they're asking us. All right, let's get into a bit of finance because I feel like we've been on basic skills for a while now. Let's get into the finance of it. All right, so in grade 11, these are the sections that you need to know in terms of finance. Okay, we need to have financial documents down, and we're going to talk about financial documents. We're going to talk about tariffs. We'll talk about profit, loss, and break even. And then what I've done is I've taken interest, banking, and inflation, and I've lumped them all into one thing because simple and compound interest also speaks back to inflation, and banking involves that to an extent. But we'll go into it in a little bit more detail. All right, let's start at the beginning. Now, I'm going to emphasize this a lot, grade 11s, that whenever we get a financial document, the first thing we do is not look at everything we have and then start picking up a calculator and a pen and writing things down. No. Step number one is always read and analyze the document from beginning to end. And I mean absolutely everything, because nothing is not of importance. We need to make sure we understand absolutely everything we are seeing so that before we answer the questions, we understand the context, and it will make it easier for us to answer the questions. So you don't go and look at the questions first. You look at what you've been given and you read and analyze everything, including the instruction that you are given. So that write-up at the very beginning, that write-up right before they give you the actual document, you need to read that part too. All right, and I'll show you why. Okay, if I look at this document over here, right? If I don't actually read what's happening on this page and start looking at the question, it says, on what date was Ms. Davies appointed? I'm still gonna have to go and look and now understand the document. So rather than make that difficult, let's go ahead and look at the whole thing completely and then answer the questions. All right, so first thing it says here is consider the salary slip. So we know that we're looking at a salary slip, and answer the questions that follow. All right, so I'm seeing here it's talking about a pay point. We've got an employee number, very good. We've got surname and initials. We've got B. Davies, good. And then we've got an ID number. Now, there's something else we need to know. What do we know about reading an ID number? This is something we need to know. The first 6 digits of any ID number tell us a lot of information. In fact, the whole ID number tells us quite a bit. So if we break down this ID number, the first 2 numbers, those 2 numbers determine the year that someone was born in. The second 2 numbers, so the 05 tells us of the month, and that 21 at the end over there, that's the day that they were born. So the first 6 digits, very, very important of an ID. So we know that's the year Miss Davies was born, the month that she was born in, and the day that she was born. Right. Lovely thing is that 083 at the end also tells us whether someone is male or female. All right. So an 081, an 083, any odd number at the end automatically means that it's female. And if there's an even number at the end, then we would know that the person is male. Interesting. Hey. How did we know? Did we know all of that about an ID number? The things in the middle also tell us a couple of things. I just can't remember all of them at the moment. But Things like this are the kinds of things that nobody's going to tell you. You're going to have to know those. All right. Okay. So we know her job title. She's air hostess. I'm not sure what carve means, so we're just going to leave it there. Okay. Then it says her medical aid tax credits. We haven't seen anything there. It says number of dependents. She's a principal member plus one dependent. That is talking about medical aid right there. So principal member means she's the principal member, and one dependent means she's got one person who she's paying for on her medical aid. All right, her payment date is on here. We can see 2019 or 5/31. Date of appointment, we can see when she started working, the number of days leave she has available, and the sick leave days she has available. Then they've split this up into income and deductions. So it's important that we're looking at each side. Okay, and then it says the description over here is her basic salary and then her overtime. And then they've put these two together, but they haven't told us what the total income is. Same on this side. They've told us that these are deductions. We also need to know what deductions means. Deductions means that things are taken away out of our salary. They've put deductions here, and again, they haven't given us the total deductions. So we know at some point that's something we're also going to have to contend with, figuring out the deductions. Then they have this funky word here called net income. Do we understand what net income means? Does anybody know what net income means? Okay, it doesn't mean not. Not the gender. Yes, it does. It does tell us about gender, Tiamo. Have we heard the word net before? No? Okay, that's something that we're going to have to learn. All right, so when you get your salary, right, and you can even ask mom and dad, it's the most frustrating thing. When you are proposed a salary by a company, that is called your gross salary, your gross income. All right, and gross means before deductions. Okay, before deductions. So after you get, let's say, for instance, you're working as a teacher and they would pay you maybe as a first-time teacher, you'd get something like 24,000 Rand. And then what happens is that sneaky government comes by and they're like, okay, you're earning 24,000 Rand a year. We would like 4,800 Rand of that per month. Thank you very much. That's taxable. That's our tax. We'll take some of that. And then you've also applied for medical aid. We'll say that's tax. You've also applied for medical aid. So the medical aid will also deduct straight from your salary. Let's say, for instance, you're paying 900 Rand for that. And then let's say you contribute to your pension fund. So you'd contribute 2,400 Rand to your pension fund. And then your UIF is always calculated, that B value. Your UIF is always calculated a certain percentage of what you earn. Let's just say for now, that's 240 Rand. All right. So they're going to take this amount, the gross amount that you earn, and they're going to minus all of these. And what you have at the end, that is your net income. That is your net income. It is basically your take home. After everybody has taken a piece of your pie, your take home is called your net income. All right, thumbs up. Everybody okay? Okay there? Okay, Nomso, are we all good with the explanation? Are we great? Are we okay there? So what you get before deductions, that's called your gross. And then they take, okay, so they take your income. All right, look at your income on this side, right? You earn your basic salary, or Ms. Davies earned her basic salary. That was how much she earned for salary. And then they gave her overtime as well. So this is her gross salary. This is her gross income for the month. That means they haven't, the tax, SARS hasn't come to take their part yet. She hasn't paid her medical aid. She hasn't paid for her pension fund. She hasn't paid all of that. So however much she makes over here, we're going to minus everything that she would have to pay for. So we know that she's going to have to pay taxes. So we're going to take this amount, both of those amounts together, minus the tax, minus the medical aid, minus the pension fund, minus the UIF. And once we've minused all of these amounts, then that becomes her net income. So once we've taken off everything that she needs to pay for, what she takes home, what she's left with, that is her net income. Does that make sense, Nomsa? Are we okay with that? Lovely. Okay, good stuff. All right. Now that we know what we're looking at on our financial documents, let's have a look at the questions. Can I give you a chance, guys, to answer the questions on your own? Is that okay? Yes. Okay, lovely. All right, have a look at the questions, have a look at everything that ma'am has explained here on the financial document, and then you'll see exactly what it is that they want from you. All right, 5 minutes, and then start with the questions. That's A, B, C. I'm sure we can make it to E. Let's make it all the way to E. And then we'll chat about F, because F also requires definitions, which is part of basic skills. Right. I'm erasing this because it was just an example, so don't stress. All right, I'm going to give you 1 more minute and then we'll discuss answers. All right, peeps, let's discuss answers. All right, let's start at the beginning with question A. And these questions are going to be quite easy because the first few questions of any paper are going to be quite nice and easy. All right, so question A says, on what date was Miss Davies appointed? So we know we're going to go to the date of appointment right over there. And we're going to write down the answer. We're just going to look 1995-01-01. That tells us that this is the 1st of January 1995. That's the answer they're looking for there. All right. Then it says, for which month and year is the salary slip? So they're not even interested in the day. You don't have to give them the day. They just want the month and year of the salary slip. So we're going to look at the payment date, and you can see here 2019-05-31. They don't care about the 31 part. They just want to know the month and the year. So we know 05 is going to be May of 2019. All right. Then it says here, determine Miss Davies' age. Now, we know from the ID number that we're able to figure out her age because we know that the first two digits of her ID number tell us exactly what year she was born in. So all we're going to have to do is take our year, whatever year we're in. We are in, let me write, see here, we are in 2024. You're just going to go 2024 minus 1974. And that will give you 50. So Miss Davies is 50 years old. All right. And that's how we can figure that out. All right. D says, determine the value of A, Miss Davies' gross income. Okay, so we're going to go here to the income part. And remember what we said about gross income. It's the amount before deductions. So we know that she's earned 10,955. And on top of that, she's worked overtime of 1,400. So we're going to take those two and add them together. We're going to take 10,995,00 plus 1,400,00. And we should get 12,395 Rand. So you need to say A equals 12,395 Rand. And the reason I'm putting the A there is because what they've asked us for is the value of A. So they've said, determine the value of A. So your answer must say A equals that. And that's what they want us to calculate for. All right. Then for E, they're saying using the information in table 1, and this is table 1, the one that they've given us over here. They say, using the information in table 1, calculate the value of B, Ms. Davies' contribution to UIF. Now, in table 1 over here, it says 1% of, and there's that of again. What did we say of means? What does of mean again? Do we remember? Of means times, right? It means times, correct. So we're going to find 1% of her gross income, which we've luckily just calculated because that was A. That was what we calculated for in A. So we're going to take the calculation we've got 1% of 12,395. All right, which in this case should give us 1,239.50. Am I correct, or have I missed it by? No, I've missed it by a comma. So it should be 123 Rand and 95 cents. Sorry, 123 Rand and 95 cents. But remember, we are calculating the value of B. So my answer should say B is equal to 123.95. All right, give me a number in the chat. How did we do out of 5? We'll take A as 1, 2, C is 3, D is 4, and E is 5. How did we do out of 5? 4. Okay, Karabo, do we know which one we didn't quite get? D. Okay. All right. Determine the value of A. All right. So the gross income is just going to be us adding all of those together. All right. So we're going to add everything on the income column. And then in deductions, do you see the part where it says total deductions? I'm wondering what they're going to ask us to calculate for D and E. I'm just saying. All right. Okay. Let's talk about F, G, and H, and then we can move from there. All right. So F says, what does the abbreviation UIF stand for? And you see how abbreviations are very important. They're going to keep coming up. So they'll ask you things like UN, things like SARS, things like GOV. What does the abbreviation GOV mean? It means government, but they will ask you those things. And I'm going to assume that because we've hardly done definitions, it's not something that's very common. You do it once and you forget about it. I'm going to let you guys in on what UIF stands for. It stands for the Unemployment Insurance Fund. Insurance fund. So what happens is the government runs the UIF. That's it, Siamo. Well done. Right. So what the government does is they run this, it's kind of like a bank account for UIF. So everybody who has like a tax-paying job, you pay a little bit of your money into your UIF. And if you ever lose your job, then you're not left destitute. You can go to the UIF offices and you can be like, I've lost my job. It's going to take me about 3 or 4 months to find myself a new job. Can I please take money out of my UIF? And then because they've been saving this money for you, when you don't have a job and you're in between jobs, then you can go and apply and they can give you some of your money back so that you can continue paying some of your expenses and the such, so that you're not completely just broke and unable to do anything while looking for another job. All right, and that's what the Unemployment Insurance Fund does. Okay, then it says here, calculate the value of D. For question G, we're on D. It says, calculate the value of D, the total deductions. Now, we know exactly how we're going to calculate the total deductions. We're going to take the current tax plus medical aid plus pension fund plus UIF, which we've just calculated. We know exactly what B is. We've just calculated it. So we're going to calculate for D, total deductions. So I can go D is equal to, and I'm going to move over just a little bit because we don't need the income part at the moment. D is equal to, we'll take 5156,57 plus 1250 plus 824,63 plus our UIF, which was 123,95, and we're going to calculate how much that is. We're just going to take all those amounts and we're going to put them together and find an answer. Who can give me an answer here? All right, I just want to check if everybody has the same answer I've got 7355,15. Yes, thumbs up. Everybody get the same answer. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm pretty sure I calculated correctly. As the teacher, I must calculate correctly. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. That is G. So we've calculated for D. So remember, you need to say D equals that. So that means this 7,355 goes there. That's an ugly 3. 7355,15 goes there. Now for H, they say calculate E, Ms. Davies' net income. And remember what we said about net income? We said that our net income is going to be our gross income minus our deductions, right? That's our net income. So we're going to go E is equal to, now we've calculated our gross income. That was A. A was our gross income. So we're going to take 12,395 and we're going to minus all of our deductions, which is 7355,15. 12,395, and that gives us 5,039,85. And that's how much Miss Davies is taking home. And personally, guys, I don't think it's just me. I feel like Miss Davies is poor. I don't know. Is it just me? I feel like she doesn't make a lot of money, guys. Something's not right here. she just seems like life is hard. She needs to find a new job. Really, really, guys, Miss Davis should find a new job. This employer is not paying her enough. All right, let me just get a sense. Thumbs up. Is everybody understanding everything we've done on financial documents today? Are we all good? Lovely. Okay. If we have any questions, now would be the time to ask them. All right, make sure that you're understanding absolutely everything I've gone through. And again, guys, they don't tell us how to do any of these calculations that we've done on the screen. This is us having to read for meaning and interpret the question into a mathematical equation. It's not like Maths Core where they're going to give you the equation and then you must solve for it. No, we need to come up with the equations ourselves and solve for them, which makes Mathlet a little bit more tricky, in my opinion, because we need to be able to read correctly and interpret what we're reading correctly. All right, let's have a look at tariffs. So a quick breakdown before we actually start on tariffs. We need to know that tariffs are cumulative, and I'm going to explain what cumulative means. Okay, tariffs are cumulative, which means that whatever we had before, we need to take what we have before and add it to the next, and add it to the next, and add it to the next. We can't just calculate each of them separately. Tariffs actually add on to each other as we go. All right, so if we have, you can see here, we've got 4 steps. And remember, guys, first thing we always do is we read the question and the information we've been given. Before we look at A, we need to read what we've been given. So it says here, use the tariff structure for water tariffs for City of Cape Town to answer the following questions. Now, in each of these steps, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. What we mean by cumulative is that whatever we get in question or in step 1, we're going to take that and we're going to add it to what we have in step 2. And we're going to take both of those and add them to what we have in step 3. And take both of those and add, or all 3 of those and add them to what we have in step 4. Is everybody okay with that? Thumbs up. It's going to make sense in just a little bit. But I'm hoping that everybody's getting what I mean when I say that they are cumulative. Cumulative means one adds onto the other, adds onto the other, adds onto the other. All right. Now, when we look at a tariff, we need to remember that they've given us specifics. They've told us that if you have 0 to 6 kiloliters, then you are in step 1. So if I calculate how many kiloliters I would need to be in step 1, I need exactly 6 kiloliters to be in step 1. But because this thing is cumulative, if I make it all the way to 10 kiloliters in the next step, how many kiloliters do I actually have in this section, in step 2? What would that be? Because it's not all the way till 10. The first 6 have already been counted in the first step. How would we figure out what the second step would have to be? We would have to take the big threshold and minus the smaller one. So we would take 10.5 and minus 6 kiloliters, and that will tell us 4.5 kiloliters. So in step 2, we're only calculating for 4.5 kiloliters. So here's what I mean by that. If I had, I'm just going to put here 4.5, so it's a little bit clearer because my handwriting was terrible. Okay, so if I have to pay a water tariff for 10.5 kiloliters, I now need to break 10.5 kiloliters up into 2 steps. I would first have to break it up into 6 kiloliters and then add, that's why it's cumulative, and then I'd have to add the next 4.5 kiloliters. Thumbs up. Is everybody getting what ma'am is saying here? We all good? Lovely. Good. So let's say, for instance, I now have to calculate for 20 kiloliters, right? If I have to calculate for 20 kiloliters, I know that the first 6 are over there. So I'm going to get 6 kiloliters plus now I have to add 4.5 kiloliters. So to figure out how to get to 20 kiloliters, I know that 6 plus 4.5, this is only 10,5. So I'm still missing 8,5 kiloliters, 8,5 kiloliters, which means the next 8,5 kiloliters must be in step 3. All right, so we add one over the other, one over the other, one over the other to make sure we get to the correct amount. All right, and that's how tariffs actually work. Okay, so we can quickly check for each threshold to make sure that we're okay with each step. So I'm going to for step 3 to figure out how many kiloliters there are here. I'm going to take 35 minus 10.5 minus 10,5, and that gives me 24,5 kiloliters. So in this next step, 24,5 kiloliters, I count there. Now, in the last one, in step 4, anything above 35 kiloliters, we can count in this one. So plus 35 kiloliters, anything above that, we can count in step 4. All right, plus 35 kiloliters. All right, I just need to double check with everyone. I know we started about 10 minutes late. Is everybody okay to stay a few minutes later just so we can finish this? Because technically we should be done. Are we all okay to stay for a few more minutes? And then we can run off once we're done. All right, lovely. Cool stuff. All right, let's start at the beginning. It says, and I think I've already given you the answer here. Question A says, how many kiloliters are there in step 2? Do you see how we've now already calculated it? Can somebody just pop the answer on the screen? Because I've already calculated it for you. How many kiloliters are in step 2? 4.5. That's it, Karabo. Lovely. It's 4,5 kiloliters. All right. So how many in step 2? 4,5 kiloliters. All right. Then it says, if you use 17 kiloliters of water a month, which step is the last step that you will be charged for? Now, we can tell, right? If we're using 17 kiloliters, we know that the first 6 are counted there. And then if we add 4.5, that only brings us to 10.5. And then we still need to add another 7 or 6.5 kiloliters. So we would end up in step 3. So for B, our answer would be step 3. Step 3, that's the answer we would get there. All right. Then question C says, the Adams family, well, I don't know about the Adams family and water tariffs, but okay. The Adams family received an account from the city of Cape Town for 17 kiloliters. Calculate how much they have to pay for the 17 kiloliters that they used. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to break up that 17 kiloliters. Okay, so we know we've got, I'm going to write C here, I know I've got 17 kiloliters is going to equal, now the first 6 kiloliters will be counted in step 1, plus 4,5 kiloliters in step 2. Now, if I'm at 6 kiloliters plus 4.5, that gives me 10,5. How many kiloliters do I still have to go? How many kiloliters do I still have to go? I can figure that out by just taking 17 and minusing 10,5. So we're going to take 17 minus 10,5, and that gives us how much? 6,5. Good, Karabo, lovely. So we're then going to add plus 6,5 kiloliters. Now, for each of these, because they want to know how much means that we must convert our kiloliters to rands, but they're telling us how much of each we're going to get in each of the steps. So in step 1, for each kiloliter, the rand per 1 kiloliter is 17,51. Now I have 6 of them. So I'm going to take 6 kiloliters times 17 rand and 51 cents. Plus, in the 4,5 kiloliter one, we're going to get 24 rand 39 per kilometer per kiloliter. So I'm going to multiply 4,5 times 24,39. 24 rand and 39 cents. And then the last 6.5 kiloliters, is paid here at 34 Rand and 63 cents. So I'm going to take 6.5 times 34,63. And that's going to give us an amount. Remember, we are adding in each of these. So on our calculator, we're going to go 6 times 17,51 plus 4,5 times 24,39 plus 6,5 times 34,63. And then that's going to tell us exactly how much the Adams family is going to pay. So punch that into your calculator for me, grade 11s, and tell me exactly how much they're going to pay. All right, I'm not sure how much you guys got, but I'm getting 439 Rand and 91 cents. Everybody else? Yay, well done, Karabo, lovely. All right, can I just get a quick thumbs up? Are we all okay with how ma'am calculated for each of these? Yes? All right, and that's how tariffs work. They work as an cumulative. We're adding one plus the other, plus the other, plus the other, adding them all together. All right, let's see the next question. D says, they also got billed for the sewage removal. It is calculated at 70%, and there's that word again, of your total water bill. How much were they charged for the sewage? All right, so this is going to be an easy calculation because we already know how much they're paying for the water bill. So we're going to take 439 Rand and 91 cents times of 70 or 70% of times 70%. You could do it the other way around, actually. Let's do it the other way around because we're finding 70% of 439 Rand and 91 cents. That's it, Karabo, lovely. 307,937. But remember, because it's money, we need to go 307, now if it's 937, that 7 is going to convert that 3 into a 4 because I have to pay in rands and cents. So I'm then going to change this to 307,94. All right. Okay, let's look at the last question. Now it says, how much was the total water and sewage bill for the city of Cape Town? Now they want the total of those two. So for E, and I'm going to write the answer over here, I'm going to take the water bill plus the sewage bill, and that will give me the amount I need. So 439,91 plus 307,94, 439,91 plus 307,94 gives us 747 Rand and 85 cents. All right, and that's the answer we get in the end. All right, and that concludes our very first lesson for the Maths Lit Bootcamp for grade 11. Thank you so much, grade 11s, for joining me. I know there's like 3 of us in here. I'm happy with that. I'm happy to walk you guys through that. I understand we didn't get through all the finance. So